Class 4. We are going to focus on our thinking today. And thinking is something that we do all the time. It's even something that, we're processing while we're sleeping. So we want to start to acknowledge and become aware of our thinking, because we have been told that our thinking is way more important than it is. It's been focused on a lot, and we have been told that thinking is that thing that, helps us to solve problems. And it does, if these are logical problems. But we want to start to notice that our thinking really keeps us in this state of stress. And it's probably the reason you joined this course, right? Mindfulness for the busy mind. Your mind is constantly going. So we want to start to acknowledge this and then ask ourselves, what can we do about it? How can we start to train ourselves, train our brain to become more comfortable with letting go of thinking and trusting in our body and starting to get comfortable so that we can have moments of quiet and connect to that part of us that actually is more intelligent than the thinking, because the thinking is just really this. Thinking is all about doing, and we don't want to be doing, we want to be being. So John Kabat-Zinn talked about, are you a human doer or a human being? We are not called human doers, we are called human beings. And the more time that we take trying to let ourselves be and appreciate the moment that we're in, instead of doing, we are going to feel better about that. So let's start to focus today on thinking. We talked about the brain last time, and today we're going to talk about thinking and how thinking affects the brain. So when we get stuck in that cycle of stress, and thoughts are what often cause us stress. Thoughts are the things when we start to think about bills, when we think about finances, when we think about our kids and worry for their future, when we think about our own futures, when we worry about our health, when we worry about whether we're going to find a partner. This is all thinking. It creates stress in our body. The thing about thinking is that it's not very valuable. But we've been taught that it really is. And, our education system sets us up for thinking that thinking is all we have, but really what we want to start to tap into is this inner wisdom. Wisdom versus intellect. Wisdom is this trusting our body and our intuition and being able to rely on that to know what is right for us, versus the intellect, which is valuable in some sense, but only for those things that are very logical and predictable, like accounting and things like that, things that are very matter of fact. We want to start to tap into, there's a whole other world out there that isn't so small as to thinking that this is what we need to thrive in this world. It isn't. I learned that we have somewhere between 40 to 60,000 thoughts a day. Yes, you heard me correctly. 40 to 60,000 thoughts a day. So if we have that many thoughts, not all of them are conscious, but we have all of these thoughts that are going on a daily basis. Before learning mindfulness and this kind of learning the spiritual path, thought that I was my thoughts. How can you be 60,000 thoughts? It's impossible. We are not our thoughts. Thoughts are just things that pop up. They are not who we are. How could they be? And of these 60,000 thoughts, anywhere between 70 to 90% of them are repeated every day, over and over again. How can we be all those thoughts? And if you think about the ones that are repeated too, they're the ones that aren't the most helpful. The thoughts that, oh, how am I ever going to do this? I'm a hot mess. I can't. So many of them are negative. I'll be happy when I lose 20 pounds. I'll be happy when I find a partner. I'll be happy when my kids are grown up and everyone's, in their careers, then I'll feel happy. No, that thought is so harmful. We want to seize the moment and start to be able to manage our thinking, ask ourselves, is our thinking healthy? And if it isn't, let's switch it. Because if we spend too much time thinking thoughts that don't help us, they become our present moment and they become our future. Our thoughts are really, really powerful. And when we think about all of the unconscious thoughts too, you have to envision an iceberg, right? So if you see the iceberg and they say, 10% of the iceberg is visible, 90% is not. So we have so much that we took in as a child, and they say from age 0 to 7 is when we take in all of these unconscious messages about who we are and what we're capable of. And we take them in, but they're not really meant for us. They were what someone else thought of us. And that has to do with everything that person went through in life and their perceptions. So it could be really limiting for us. So we want to let go of all of these thoughts that maybe were formed by someone else, whether it be society, our culture, parents, teachers, because most likely they're not true for us. So when we start to really tune into thinking, we want to ask ourselves, is this helpful or not? Let's go back to what we learned, I think, in class 1. When we go to the future, when our thoughts start to think about, oh yeah, I have to do this tomorrow, and I do this, and what if this happens? Future thinking. Future thinking always puts us into worry, stress, unless you're kind of thinking about planning fun vacation or something like that. Usually though, it puts us into stress, anxiety. If your thoughts go to the past a lot, if you're thinking about things that already happened, if you're wishing things were different, you are probably in regret, you are in victim mode, you're wishing things were different, and that causes us to feel sad, often shameful, guilty. None of that is good for us. We want to start to bring our attention right back, bring our thoughts to right here, right now. The only place where we can be truly content is right here, right now. When we go to the future, we're in worry mode, not content. When we go to the past, we can be anywhere between sad, resentful, shameful, whatever. We don't want to be there either. Right here, right now is where we want to be. Okay, so the other thing about thoughts is that they are influenced by emotion. We're going to learn about emotion next class. They are also our conditioning, right? So what we were told we should be by our parents, their expectations. And maybe they didn't fit for us. And that's okay. You got to understand too, our parents did the best that they could with what they were given. And we are evolving as a species with each generation. So we're not blaming them, but we want to start to notice that maybe that wasn't a right fit for me. And that's okay. So let's start to notice thinking. We can learn thinking. We can learn to disidentify, to de-identify from our thinking and just say, oh, there I go, thinking, or just a thought. If we have 60,000 of them, why don't we pick the ones that are helpful to us so that we can start to base our identity on those instead of the ones that don't help us? So we're going to do a practice today of just noticing thinking, and it's called a labeling practice. So I invite you to close your eyes. Take a nice, long, slow, deep breath and release any tension that you might feel in your bodies, just even after thinking about thinking. So we're going to use our tools that we learned. You can tune into sound. And then you're going to find your anchor. So feeling your breath in your body. And then every time you start to notice yourself think, you're just going to label it as thinking. And then bring your attention right back to your breath. And it doesn't matter if you notice thinking 30 times in 30 seconds. The most powerful work is of bringing your attention back. That's when the prefrontal cortex grows. That's when it gets more connected. So every time we notice distraction, it is a moment of mindfulness where we bring our attention back to right here, right now. It is exercise for the brain. Just like we know we need to exercise our bodies to be healthy, this is the most amazing exercise for the brain. Notice how it feels in your body to bring that attention back. It's like you finally have some control, right? You can't control anyone else around you, but you can control yourself. Thanking yourself for taking this time for yourself. So I want you to notice thinking. Thinking, right? There's toxic thoughts. There are unhealthy, unhelpful thoughts. I want you to start to focus on the thoughts that help you. I want you to spend more time in a state of love and compassion and healthy thinking. As soon as you start to notice yourself, even when you're practicing your meditation, if you notice thinking, just let it go, label it, and come back to your breath. This is the practice and how it helps you once you do the practice, when you're not stressed, when you are, then it helps you to have that muscle memory to do it when you are really stressed. All right, I'll see you next time.